I am with SciStarter. Oh, thank you, Emily. We are recording this. We have a lot of folks that want the recording afterwards. Let us know your location in the chat. I'm here in Philadelphia, and I have co-hosts all across the country. Emily's in Texas. You're going to meet Caroline in a second in Florida, and Robin's in Washington. So we are and Darlene on the line too from Philly and in Long Beach Island. So we are a bi-coastal national team, and we're so excited to be with you today. All right, next slide. So what are we achieving today? We're going to think a little bit about citizen science programs in libraries. In our previous webinar, you heard a little bit about what is citizen science. We're not going to be covering that in too much detail today, but we want to dive into how can you start to create some programming around citizen science. And Caroline's going to take you through planning it, different event formats, resources, Citizen Science Month, which is coming up in 2022. And then I'll wrap up telling you some upcoming opportunities and next steps. So before we get started with the content, this is brought to you by the National Citizen and Community Science Library Network, which launched back in May, and many of you have signed up for. If you haven't signed up for this network, newsletters, grant opportunities, resources, please do so at scistarter.org/library-network. And the goals of this network are pretty simple. Oh, I guess first is what I said. Go ahead. Yeah, that's all right. The goals of this network are all around what is citizen science, right? It is a citizen science network, and citizen science is a global movement that enables people from all walks of life to collaborate with scientists and participate in real science research. It's how anyone can make an impact on issues that they care about. You'll hear about a ton of different projects today and programs associated with those. And if you haven't, please take the citizen science training. We'll show you where to find that in just a bit, and that'll do a deeper dive into what is citizen science. The goals of the National Citizen and Community Science Library Network, which is the next slide, are to build capacity of you all, to become hubs for citizen science. We want, our goal is for you all to feel empowered to bring citizen science to your communities, to support your communities, to engage in citizen science projects and programming in an effort to broaden participation of who is participating in citizen science. We want to increase the diversity, and the ultimate goal of all of this work is to help shape and accelerate scientific research as we participate in these projects. What are the benefits of this network? Well, you're on one of the benefits today. Next slide, please. Ongoing professional development. This is a webinar, part of a series that we're going to be doing all year long. There's a couple more coming up that we'll tell you about at the end. We also have a ton of resources that we're going to be sharing today and in subsequent webinars. You'll have access to future grant and funding opportunities. This is a place, a community of practice for libraries that are invested in citizen science to come and talk together. And we have a network of community-based organizations like the Girl Scouts and 4-H that are also interested in citizen science and partnering with libraries. And also, as we study this network, we're happy to share our data and our findings back with you all so that you can use it in your grant proposals. What do we expect if you join the network? Sign up, engage your community in citizen science, build and circulate citizen science kits, which you'll hear a little bit about today, but more about in January. We hope that you promote awareness of the library network, attend our webinars and our community of practice calls. And if there is any evaluation, there is one, for example, after today's call. Please, please, please participate in it. We love data. We use data to help move this work forward. So check out this library network page again for training and resources and kits. Everything. This is kind of your one-stop shop for what we offer to the citizen science and the Citizen and Community Science National Network. All right, I'm going to pass it over now to Caroline Nickerson, Program Director at SciStarter, to tell you a little bit more about how to develop a citizen science program. Take it away, Caroline.
Yeah, thank you, Tara. And like Tara said, if you are only able to remember one link from today's presentation, just a one, scistarter.org/library-network is a really good link to remember. And as you know, this event's being recorded, so don't feel pressured to get every single detail right at the top. We're gonna basically give you a roundup of resources today, tips and tricks, some hard-won knowledge about how to host a citizen science program, and things that we've seen work really well with different libraries we work with. So don't feel pressured to absorb everything in this particular webinar. And one thing as well, I always like to start with this. What we're giving here is really advice. There's no right or wrong way to do a citizen science program. We're able to tell you what we've seen work based on what our evaluation has reported with different partner libraries we've worked with, as well as community-based organizations, but you know your community best. So if you know that a project about pollinators will really resonate with your community, whereas astronomy projects aren't really as much as a focus for them, then do that. You know what types of programs work with your community. Maybe your community loves checking out books, but they don't really like in-person programming as much. Or maybe your community is really into asynchronous modules. You never know. You know, based on the resources we have, what will resonate. And the best way to learn how to do a citizen science program is just by doing one. And that goes for citizen science in general. So don't be afraid to jump in. So what is SciStarter? I always think this is good to start with. SciStarter is a globally acclaimed web and mobile site that connects millions of people to thousands of projects, events, and tools. So basically, project leaders, researchers, people who need volunteers from all over the world have added these citizen science opportunities to SciStarter for you to discover. People just like you who are curious, concerned, and motivated to make a difference. And you all have kind of a unique role because you're stepping into a leadership capacity, right? You're able to find these global or local projects and calls to action and get your community involved. And another thing SciStarter does beyond just the project finder and all the different projects, events, and tools you can discover and join, we also host field-tested, customizable resources for libraries and community-based organizations, like Tara said. And the scistarter.org/library-network page is a great place to get started discovering these different resources. There are a lot there, but since you all are with libraries, I really think that's the best place to start. Oh, and I forgot to say, the glory of remote work means that my office today is an outlet I found. So if you see anybody in the background, I apologize. I know you all can sympathize. One thing I really love about working with libraries is you all are so flexible and you make sure the show goes on and the program happens. So all part of the fun there. So we have a poll. We want to know, have you organized a citizen science event or program at your library before? I actually recognize some of your names. So some of you, I know for a fact, the answer is yes. And you might not be sure. If you're unsure, that's okay too. Just answer this poll and let us know, yes, I've organized a citizen science program before, or no, I haven't. I'll give you a few seconds to answer that. And a citizen science program could just be, putting a book display up. And in my book, that counts as a program. It's basically, have you done anything with citizen science in your library before? All right, looks like we have 2 or 3 more people who need to vote. So 3, 2, 1, we're about to close the poll. Okay. So those are the results. So it looks like the vast majority of you have not organized a citizen science program at your library before, and that is A-okay. We're going to tell you what you need to know to get started. So we'll stop sharing that and we'll go to the next slide. So before we get into the nitty-gritty of why you should host a citizen science event or program for your community, I really recommend, I saw Robin put in the chat, definitely make a SciStarter account, because I think it really helps to get familiar with citizen science yourself. And there are so many projects out there that you can just go ahead and get started with. So you could go on SciStarter, you can make a SciStarter account, and then you can use that project finder. Let's say that you're really passionate about Alzheimer's research. You want to see a cure to Alzheimer's in your lifetime. You can find this project on SciStarter called Stall Catchers. You can make your SciStarter account, and then you go to the Stall Catchers website to participate. Someone said, yay, Stall Catchers. Okay, so we got some fans in here. And you could just start participating in Stall Catchers on your own. And if you have a SciStarter account with the same email address that your Stall Catchers account is under, all the number and frequency of your contributions track in your SciStarter dashboard, so you can get credit for that. The training will step you through that. We'll get to the training in a second. But just a little tip on our end, definitely just do some citizen science yourself to get comfortable, and then you'll feel good about hosting a citizen science event for your community. So why would you do it, right? You would introduce citizen science projects that your community cares about. So that Alzheimer's project, if you know that your community is really passionate about health, that might be a great project to include. They also build community and enhance science literacy. Many of these projects have actually embedded learning outcomes in the project itself. So you're doing real science when you're participating in citizen science, you're collecting or analyzing data, but by doing a project with your community members, they could also be learning things about science, just almost by osmosis, if you all know that term, where you just absorb things. By doing stalk catchers, you're learning skills like data analysis. So that's enhancing science literacy. And I mean, the biggest thing is, I think citizen science works as a conceptual innovation because it changes people's view of who can do science, because the answer is anybody can do science. And if you look at the other side of this slide, these are actually outcomes from the Citizen Science Month evaluation that was conducted by Arizona State University this year. They surveyed participants of over 100 different events that were hosted on SciStarter's Zoom webinar account with libraries and other community-based organizations from around the world. And the results were really heartening on our end. We found that doing citizen science, it helps science, it moves science forward, there are research results, but the participants also gain a lot from it too. So that's a really good reason to host a citizen science program. And I wanted to just kick things off with a particular event example. Citizen Science Month this past April was such a blast, and everyone put their own spin on it. But I thought I'm pronouncing that wrong, Lummi Island in Washington State did a particularly good job because they did a 3-pronged program with multiple organizations on the island. So they had their island library that was involved, they had their community association, and their Island Heritage Trust, which is a conservation organization. And they were able to do multiple citizen science projects to study the local environment. They paired these projects with a community cleanup. So they had people out there picking up trash and doing a debris tracker project to study plastic pollution and get some sort of research result about it. And they also had a webinar with us at SciStarter that kicked all this off, gave an introduction to citizen science, got people into the library to check out some citizen science books, including the Field Guide to Citizen Science, which was co-authored by Darlene Cavalier from SciStarter, the founder of SciStarter. So it was just really amazing how they did it. It was over the span of multiple days, but on the kickoff day, a participant could watch the webinar that I did with the Island Library. They could go to the library, check out some books, pick up some cleaning supplies, go out into the community, do a community cleanup, and also monitor debris with a citizen science project, and then participate in the Great Sunflower Project to monitor local pollinators in the community. So just really cool stuff how they did that. And you don't have to be as ambitious as that, right? You don't have to have as many community partners. You don't have to have expert speakers. You could just have a book display, or you could just do the online training with your library. But I wanted to give this example of kind of what's possible, because you can really put your own spin on it and go deep with your community. So hopefully you're inspired and you know that you can plan your own citizen science program. So there are a few key considerations, and we've gotten this from our different advisors who have told us this. I love working with Robin Salthouse, who's on the SciStarter team, because she's a retired public librarian. She keeps us honest about what libraries need to consider. So this is actually a screenshot from our Library and Community Guide to Citizen Science, which you'll find on the Library Network page. But the main thing, number one up front, is consider your audience and what projects they might be interested in learning more about and participating in. Because there are thousands of opportunities on SciStarter, and we've narrowed things down into projects that we tend to recommend for libraries. But even within those, there's diversity. You could go, I think my community loves the outdoors and they want to study pollinators, or my community is really into health and they would love to help Alzheimer's researchers search for a cure. It just depends on what project you think would be a good fit. And you could do a few different projects and then move forward with the ones that really, really resonate. It's up to you. Then you decide the type of event you want to host. So as you all know, you don't need me to tell you twice, we're in an interesting world with virtual and in-person programming, and some programs that are hybrids of the two. I would call the Lummi Island program I showed you on the last slide hybrid program, because there are some people who are watching the webinar in person at the library. There are some people who are watching it just online. Some people watched the webinar online, then came to the library later in the day to get the cleanup supplies. That's like a hybrid program. So there's a lot of flexibility here. You could do just a virtual program. You could do a live streamed event on Zoom. You could do just yourself on Facebook Live on your library's page, or you could do an in-person program, you know, in a study room at the library with your local citizen science club, if you wanted to create your own club. We've seen it all, and it just comes down to what works for your community. You can also invite experts to the program. That's one thing that we've seen work really well. Sometimes the experts can get a little fatigued if they're doing a bunch of programs. So you can also play recordings from the SciStarter YouTube channel of experts who have spoken at past library programs, but you can also use the SciStarter People Finder to message project leaders in your area. Because I've been giving examples of global projects. For example, you can monitor pollinators with the Great Sunflower Project with any flowering plant anywhere in the world. But there are some really cool local projects you can find on SciStarter. One example, there are projects where you can just do it on the Pacific Northwest coast, and you can monitor birds that are in trouble on the Pacific Northwest coast. Or there are some projects I've seen where it's just one particular creek in South Carolina. It really just depends. So you can use that People Finder to message project leaders who are just in your area, and you can use the SciStarter Project Finder to narrow down some super local projects. I'll give one shout out, Blue Thumb. That I did a program with them about 2 years ago now, and that's a project that's just in Oklahoma, where it's people monitoring water quality, and they've done a stupendous job. But they have their scope defined, they have their protocol defined. They just want volunteers in Oklahoma to monitor water quality. So if there are any Oklahoma libraries on the line, that'd be a great project to feature. Or of course, you could feature that and a global project. It's really up to you. Definitely explore SciStarter to find the right project, or go with our recommendations. And these resources will help you prepare. So if you're feeling a little overwhelmed, like, oh my gosh, there are thousands of projects, what do I do? The library resources page and that library and community guide to citizen science is a great place to start. We have some survey templates in there. We got best practices, we got case studies, and so much more. It's also periodically updated. So if you're reading this and you think, hey, I would really love to see a new section in the next edition, don't be shy about reaching out. We have modified it in response to your feedback, because you all give us some of the best feedback. And that event planning template that you saw on the last slide was a screenshot from there. So there are resources like that as well. So let's dive a little bit deeper into event and program formats. So we mentioned that you could just have a display. It could be interactive. We have some poster templates up on the website that you can download from that library resources page. I really like it when people create posters with a question and you put sticky notes to answer the questions. There can be some really interesting responses there. And we have templates for those about citizen science on the website. The Field Guide to Citizen Science book is always great to get started with. Darlene Cavalier, the founder of SciStarter, she did a few book talks during Citizen Science Month on Zoom with different libraries. So you could do your own little book club meeting. It could be a lot of fun. And you could do affinity group meetings. As you saw at the Lummi Island library, they did a great job of enlisting their local conservation group and local community organizations and community cleanups and accompanying citizen science projects. You could do something similar, maybe with the gardening club or the astronomy club, with citizen science projects that correspond to those topics. And I mean, these programs are also tried and true, have worked really well with libraries. You could do a BioBlitz. You can use the iNaturalist app. You could have people check out tablets or phones from the library or different kits. SciStarter, we'll get into that in a second. We have different kit templates that you can adapt for your own library. You can have people go out there and monitor biodiversity, just documenting as many different plants and animals as you can in that time period. That could be a really fun event. And there's a lot of learning there, because people also learn about what different species are in their local environment, which is very important for science and also just for community embeddedness. You could do a walking or cleanup tour like the Lummi Island people. The Marine Debris Tracker project is one of my favorites to do with this type of thing, because you can monitor the different types of debris. Let's say your community finds 5 plastic bottles in one particular spot and a few different cigarette butts. You would log all of that in the Debris Tracker app, and you're contributing to a global research understanding. You're helping scientists understand what type of litter is where so they can potentially work for upstream solutions. You could also do the IC Change project. That's a really popular environmental monitoring project where community members just describe what they see in the environment and try to contextualize it into terms of what they think is typical versus not typical for the weather conditions on a given day. So I see people do IC Change in Miami, Florida a lot. They use it to document flooding that they see on the sidewalk. And the city of Miami is actually partnered with IC Change to target areas that people identify for resiliency, for adaptation, to help mitigate floods. So there's a lot there with a walking or clean up our environmental tour. That could be a potential program for you. And I talked about the stall catchers project earlier. I really think that libraries are so dominant with stall catchers. You all create your teams and you get competitive and you have fun, but it's a friendly competition because you see who can classify the most blood vessels for this project to help Alzheimer's researchers. And it's gamified, so you get points for the different classifications you do. But this is also a project with a pretty low barrier to entry. So if you are a children's librarian, you could do this project with middle schoolers, and you could also collaborate with your adult librarian and do a multi-generational program with middle schoolers to retirees. The Stall Catchers project is a really great one for intergenerational learning, and I've seen just groups of adults do it, just groups of students do it, and people of all ages do it. And that's also one that works really well for a virtual program. I tend to just pop stall catchers up on the screen and start classifying videos with people. I'll say, do you think this blood vessel stalled or flowing? And they'll make the annotation with me. And that's a great way of having a community feel, even on a Zoom webinar. And all these projects I've mentioned, so iNaturalist, Marine Debris Tracker, IC Change, Stall Catchers. I see also Globe Observer Trees. That's a NASA project where you can monitor tree height to help NASA researchers track carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Really cool project, definitely look into it. It's app-based. All of those projects are SciStarter affiliates. So if you and your community members, if you make your SciStarter accounts with the same email addresses you use to make your accounts on these other websites, you can track the number and frequency of your contributions. And there are free tools on SciStarter, like the SciStarter list, for example, where you can also do some basic level monitoring of your community's contributions if they opt into that. I think the list, I definitely would just look on the library guide for more info on that. And I'm also happy to explain it to you all one-on-one too, or if we have some time at the end. As you can see, there's really a wealth of resources here. So there's lots you can kind of dig into. The kits are something though, I definitely want to highlight because I think that has been a very useful tool for libraries. So if you go to scistarter.org/library-build-kit, so SciStarter.org, the library build-a-kit page, you can find some templates that you could print out. So like we talked about the iNaturalist project, right? Where people are trying to document as many different species of plant and animal as they can. The iNaturalist project, all you really need is a smartphone or a computer or a tablet to do it. You just have to upload the picture you take and the observation you make to the website. But this is a project that can be augmented and enhanced with the use of the kit, because you could attach a lens to your smartphone and you could take an even better picture that is more easy for experts to identify to get to the species level of what you've seen. And also, I think the kit works really well for this project because quite simply, it makes it fun. It's really fun to augment your contribution and make it better by the use of this kit. And the different templates SciStarter has, the step-by-step instructions that can be embedded into the kit that people could check out from the library, the field guide, a little journal is something people have added before, so people can journal about their contributions. It really works well for ongoing citizen science engagement. So let's say theoretically you had a webinar, you introduced people to the iNaturalist project, you described why you want to do it in your community, and then you urge them to check out the kit. The kit allows for ongoing participation. So circulating that can be really great for libraries. So there are some essential elements of citizen science programs. And this actually is one of the things I learned from Science Friday. They did a webinar with us this past Citizen Science Month, this past April, as well as the Citizen Science Month before that, April 2020, to talk about some of the things that they've learned about doing programming, especially for citizen science. And this can be boiled down to 3 words: story, experience, and action. So the story aspect, the question we should always ask is, why should the viewer care? Why should my community care? Why am I asking people to participate in this? It could be because you want to understand pollinator populations in your community. You want to know if pollinators are doing well because you know they're really important to the food supply. Or it could be if your program's in Miami, Florida, for example, you've seen a lot of flooding on the sidewalk. So you want to give people tools to document this and empower them with a citizen science project. But whatever it is, the question is, why should the viewer care? And you want to tell a story to that effect. You also want an experience. So you want a demo, an active component. You want them to be able to observe something tangible, because that's the thing about citizen science that makes it different from just science education. You're asking people to do something. So beyond just the story, the why, you need them to be able to see something real. And then from that experience, that demo, that active component, you want to move them into action. So you want to, it's a call to action. You want the viewer to actually participate in something, actually do something, make a contribution to a citizen science project, collect some data, analyze some data. And the word data just means information. So you want there to be something tangible the viewer can do. You have story, you have experience, and you have action. So I like examples that helps me conceptualize things. We've been talking about the Great Sunflower Projects, and that's a project Science Friday's actually done a lot with their community. So we figured, let's talk about that. So the Great Sunflower Project, contrary to what the name might imply, you can actually do it with any flowering plant. The crux of the project is you pick a flowering plant, you sit there, and you count the number of pollinators that visit it. Pollinators could be bees, butterflies, even bats. Also, I learned recently lemurs are pollinators. That's just a side note. I thought that was fascinating. Pollinators are any creature that engage in pollination, which can fertilize things for our food supply. So that can all be part of the story, right? You can explain what pollination is, what's a pollinator, what are some local pollinators, and you can invite a subject matter expert to do that with you too. You could, there are recordings of the project leader from the Great Sunflower Project, or you can contact SciStarter, and or you could use our people finder and we could help you find a local expert. But you could read a story, you could share a video, you just explain why pollinators matter. Then you move them to the experience. So you could demo the project for them. So you could actually, you see I'm outside right now, right? I've done the experience portion on my smartphone for Zoom webinars before, where I've sat there and count the number of pollinators that visited my Chinese hibiscus flowers while I was on the line with people. You can take them out and about. Or if you don't have the bandwidth to do that, you could have a demo set up in front of you, some props at the library, or you could have a citizen science kit with you, and you could just point to different components of the kit. That counts as an experience as well. And the Great Sunflower Project is a particularly good one to do if you're in a community that doesn't have very good internet, because you can use data sheets. There are data sheets available on SciStarter for this project, where you could hand those out to people and they could write down the number of pollinators they saw for a given plant and then submit them later, maybe at the library computer lab, for example. So your experience portion could just be writing down things on the data sheet. And then for action, you could ask everyone to participate with you on the line. You could use the Observing Pollinators Kit template that SciStarter has to create your own kit. And you can actually collect data together with people for the action component, be it on Zoom, in person, or a hybrid of the two. There are a lot of ways you can get creative about the action. So you have the story, the why people should care. And why should they care? Because pollinators matter. They're responsible for a lot of our food, and we want to understand that their populations are doing well. That's why we should care. That's the story. You have the experience, which is doing the project, counting the number of pollinators that visit a flowering plant, and you could demo that for them, or you could demo the kit. And then you have the action, which is actually participating and submitting some data to this project of the number of pollinators that visited your flowering plant. So as promised, we have a lot of resources, and we're going to move on into resource roundup. You know what's best for your community, and you'll know which of these resources resonate. So my big ask to you all now is, as I go through this rapid fire resource roundup, if you see something where you think, oh my gosh, I know this would work well for my community, go ahead and let us know in the chat, because we want to read that out. Okay, so I teased you all a little bit with the training because I think it's really cool. There's the Foundations of Citizen Science Training. This was created by SciStarter, Arizona State University, and the network of the National Library of Medicine. It's also available in Spanish. So this is another perk you can offer for your community. This training is completely free. There are two parts to it. The first one is the Foundations of Citizen Science training, which you could have your staff do, but it's also targeted to the general public. So anyone can do it. I've seen middle schoolers do this training. I've seen retirees do this training. I've seen working adults from the Verizon Corporation do this training. And it just walks people from through the who, what, when, where of citizen science. And it's a lot of fun too. There are videos embedded, there are quizzes, and at the end you get your own badge, which is really cool. And you participate in projects through this training, including the Stall Catchers project. So you could just have your community do the training with you, and that counts as a program. There's also a special training that's just for libraries that I urge you all to do if you haven't done it already. By doing this training, it helps staff feel a little bit more comfortable with citizen science, but also sets you up so your library can become a community hub. So it walks you through how to host programs, build kits, and engage the community. So the SciStarter website too is also a resource for you. So just by going to SciStarter, you can use that project finder to find local or global projects, or projects that can correspond with different types of subject matter: animals, plants, astronomy, etc. You can also search by activity. So projects to do on a hike, if you know you want to do it on a hike with your community, or projects to do inside, or projects that are online only, or projects that are particularly good for high school. And one really cool feature is you can actually search by the relevant sustainable development goal now. That was a citizen science effort. A group from Lithuania analyzed all the projects on SciStarter, and they figured out, okay, I think this could slot in with these different sustainable development goals to help contribute to a more sustainable world. So explore that as well. SciStarter helps you find projects, events, and tools that people have added for you to discover. You can also add your own stuff. So if you have an event, and let's say it's online, you can add that to SciStarter. I know the Los Angeles Public Library did that for all of their citizen science events this past year, and it ended up working out really well for them because they had some global people who found their events through SciStarter. So for virtual events, you can add it and anybody can come. And you can also add super local events too. And then you can use the SciStarter People Finder to invite SciStarter users in your area to participate in your event. So you might get some new folks that way. Regardless, just add your event, and we tend to promote them on social media. If you add them, we'll tweet it out, we'll post it on Instagram, because we want to celebrate you. And you can also embed the Project Finder widget on your own website. That's some code that we offer. Work with your web services team at your library, and people could find projects from SciStarter right on your library's website. There are also, we've been talking about resources for your events. I mentioned poster templates. I love those interactive posters. A lot of these different printable and digital and just guidance resources. There are bookmarks, for example. We got social media titles, the list goes on. You can download those at scistarter.org/library-resources. Okay, so we did our resource roundup. We talked about the different ways that you can do different programs. We tried to give you some ideas. Now, if you have a physical calendar in front of you, go ahead and mark it. If you don't, maybe just put it in your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar. But I've been saying the word Citizen Science Month throughout this presentation, and I wanted to let you all know it is every April. It is it's an excuse to celebrate citizen science, but many of you, I think it was around 90% at the beginning of this program, you had never done a citizen science event or program before. Citizen Science Month is a great excuse to launch a year of citizen science programming. You could do an introductory webinar. You could do a BioBlitz. You could do a community cleanup with the debris tracker project. The list goes on, right? And you can add your event to SciStarter, and we have additional support during Citizen Science Month. So we also tend to host big keynote programs. You could just jump onto one of those. You could come to our office hours. We do office hours every Thursday. And you could say, I really want to add my library's logo to the flyer that you have with this event with a subject matter expert from National Geographic. And you could have your community tune into that event and have a lot of fun with it. People have done different watch parties for our event. I know we did for Citizen Science Month 2020, we did an event with a group of citizen scientists who had discovered a new aurora, which is an astronomical phenomenon in the night sky, and they named it Steve, which I think is funny. So look up Steve when you have time. There's also a page on SciStarter about Steve. And different people, different libraries from around the country use that recording as a citizen science program. So There are lots of things you can do in April, and one thing we've heard in the past from libraries per our evaluation is that you all like to have a few months of lead time. Well, it's November now, so it's the perfect time to start planning your program or event for Citizen Science Month this coming April. And Citizen Science Month this past year, according to our evaluation, was a success. We reached over 1 million people on social media. We had over 10,000 people tune into over 100 live online events that were supported by SciStarter. And we had over 350,000 contributions to SciStarter affiliate projects. So those are those projects I told you about, where if you have the same email on SciStarter and on the project itself, and different projects have the integration set up a little differently. We just have the email thing as the most common. So out of all those thousands of projects on SciStarter, there's a smaller subset that are affiliates. Of that smaller subset that have gone the extra mile to hook up that affiliate integration, we were able to see over 350,000 contributions, which I think is really awesome and shows a tangible contribution by the global community to science. And 100% of facilitators surveyed. So for all those, for that 100 plus events, there were often multiple facilitators for each event. Every single one of them enjoyed their experience. So we were able to provide additional event support to most of these folks. And at the very least, give them a shout out on social media or promote them as part of the general calendar. And it matched or exceeded their expectations. So I bring up the bookmarks because I know that library staff love bookmarks. So definitely print those out from citizensciencemonth.org. They're going to be tweaked for Citizen Science Month 2022. But you can definitely use some of the project bookmarks right now, for example. And you can also use some of the evergreen ones. So use those resources, use those bookmarks, print those citizen science specific materials we have. We also have certificates that you can download, some certificate templates. Buttons have been really popular with libraries. Sometimes people will put buttons in the kits or put them on tables for people to hand out. And there are also citizen science specific posters where you can add those little post-it notes and answer different citizen science questions. And you can find all of those on the citizensciencemonth.org website. So we mentioned office hours. Those are every Thursday at 8 a.m. and 11 a.m. Eastern. And you never know who's going to show up on those. We've had some really fun global conversations. There was a woman from South Africa last week, which was really cool. She's working with project leaders there on citizen science programming. Sometimes you'll have library staff from different places in the world, like Missouri, or Florida, where I am. So you can come to office hours if you just want to talk things through and brainstorm. You can sign up for some facilitator updates for Citizen Science Month. We have a separate mailing list beyond just the library network mailing list, where we ping people about Citizen Science Month specific updates. And you can add your program or event to the SciStarter calendar. If you already know that you're doing something in April, go ahead and pop it up. Or if you're doing a program tomorrow, you can add that to SciStarter too. We want to celebrate you and we want to know what you're doing. All right, so I gave the rapid fire slides today. I wanted to leave lots of time for Q&A and questions. So Tara, how do you want to do this? Do you want to give the announcements first? Okay,
yeah, let's
good.
go over some of the announcements, but thank you, Caroline. That was so much good information. We have a lot of time for questions, so please stay on the line. Let's just quickly go through these opportunities. So as I mentioned, Caroline, if you want to go to the next slide, there are some upcoming webinars that go deeper into some of the things that you've heard about today. On January 26th is the deep dive into citizen science kits. So we'll be talking about how to build a citizen science kit from soup to nuts. Please join us then. And then in February, we're going to be doing a Planning for Citizen Science Month event that is going to go even deeper into how to plan an event, particularly for Citizen Science Month. And you can register for both of those on the scistarter.org/library-network page. And also if you sign up for the newsletter, those come through as well. So we really encourage you to sign up for the newsletter. And we just got this great opportunity in yesterday from our partners at the National Libraries of Medicine and All of Us, the All of Us program. There's a mini grant, a mini programming opportunity. These awards are up to $5,000. So you can apply but before December 3rd of this year. $5,000 to support health and literacy programming in libraries. And one of the things that you can propose is a Citizen Science Month program or host a Citizen Science Month event in April. So You can align all of these things. I think if you want to apply for one of these mini award opportunities and talk about, you can certainly join one of those office hours and talk through with Caroline and Robin what your event might be before putting in your proposal. We are absolutely open to that. There's also other ways to structure these awards. So take a look. I put the URL, Emily put the URL in the chat. Robin says, wow, $5,000 can do a lot. Yes, this is a great opportunity. They're awarding up to 13, and there's more information on that webpage that you see in front of you. I think Emily dropped it in the chat. We're also going to be sending out a post webinar email today, or probably not today, but in the next coming days, and we'll kind of summarize a lot of these resources so that you can find them more quickly. All right, questions, folks. We have 15 minutes to ask questions about Citizen Science Month programming. Feel free to type them in the chat. Actually, we don't have too many folks on the line today. I think we could unmute mics. And yeah, let's.
If someone wanted to, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. I was just gonna say I just made it so you can now unmute yourself. So feel free to unmute yourself and ask questions to Caroline, or type it in the chat. Go ahead, Caroline.
Yeah, I was saying, since we have the time, we could almost do a live brainstorming session with some of you. If you wanted to go ahead and ideate a program with us. I mean, that could be an instructive exercise for everybody.
Absolutely.
I can give a quick example while you all get your questions formulated. And don't be shy about putting them in the chat or just unmuting and shouting them at me. We did a program last month with the Kenosha Public Library in Wisconsin. And what they did, which I thought was really interesting, is they focused on the Crowd the Tap project. So Crowd the Tap asked participants to monitor the pipes in their community. So Crowd the Tap wants people to see if their pipes are made of lead, if they're made of plastic, if they're made of another material, and you do that through a simple scratch test, a penny, or a magnet. And there are additional kit materials you can use, like different water testing strips. And the Kenosha Public Library was able to do a webinar with us where they went through level 1 of what the program was like of participating in the Crowd the Tap project. And then for people who attended that webinar, they got a free kit to participate in level 2 of the project. And they also collaborated with their local government to do a water quality tour of the community. And they got the project on their local radio station and their local news station. And then we did a follow-up webinar after the first one, and after people got the kits, and it was just a Q&A and informal help session to see how the participation process was. And they did this over the course of a month. So I think it was August, I believe. They declared August to be Water Quality Month, and they got a bunch of different people involved in a multi-step program focused on one citizen science project. So you don't have to go that hard. I mean, they did a really great job, but there are lots of different opportunities for y'all to do things. Let's look at the chat. Someone said, I have a Girl Scout meeting tomorrow where we will be learning about citizen science. What can you recommend that we do in the neighborhood? Ooh, I have a recommendation. Do the Think Like a Citizen Science journey from SciStarter for the Girl Scouts. This journey, SciStarter has collaborated with the Girl Scouts to offer a set of SciStarter affiliate projects for different levels of Girl Scouts. One of them is actually the Great Sunflower Project. Another one is the Stall Catchers Project. And the girls are able to participate in a project and then plan some sort of take action project in their community. I've seen a lot of people do community education events, put up plaques, things like that, to educate people about the topics related to these citizen science projects. So the Girl Scouts Think Like a Citizen Science journey from SciStarter is tailor-made for you all, for the Girl Scouts. And I think we can find that link. Great, Emily, Tara put it in the chat. Awesome. Yes.
The other thing I was going to say, oh, go ahead.
Sorry, this is Mara. I was the person who typed in the information about doing the Girl Scout meeting. I have looked at all of the materials. I was just wondering, somebody just said Project Squirrel's a good one. Like, I was just wondering if somebody knew off the top of their head some good projects that we could do in a regular neighborhood, if something came to mind. So that's a great, Darlene, that's a great suggestion. So I have looked at all the materials. I'm just looking for shout outs at this point.
Project Squirrel, absolutely. I was going to also suggest the iNaturalist project, and you can build a kit for that. I'll drop the link in the chat again for how to build the biodiversity kit. And that one has the different lenses that you can use to just explore your neighborhood biodiversity and then document it. That's another great one for Girl Scouts.
Awesome. And let's see, someone else just said, Sarah said in the chat, we are looking forward to incorporating citizen science into our library astronomy club. We have 2 measuring light in the night kits ready as of October for the Globe at Night project. We hope to take it to schools and host programs in the near future. Very cool. Yeah, Globe at Night is a cool project because they have different campaigns every month. So they have some focus weeks and they pick out a different constellation for your hemisphere of the world. So we're in the Northern Hemisphere. So I think last month the constellation was Pegasus. I'm not sure what this month is, but that's really cool. Let us know how it goes. And please, Sarah, add your program to SciStarter, scistarter.org/add.
The one other thing I will add too, Sarah, is looking at your local amateur astronomer and NASA Night Sky Network group that could come in and offer some additional expertise to your library astronomy club. I will drop the link in the chat of how to find your nearest amateur astronomer and NASA Night Sky Network program.
Tiara said, let's see, we have a new question in here. What advice do you have for showcasing kits? We have the Observing Biodiversity Kit and the Lights in the Night Sky Kit. I feel like Robin would have a good answer to this question. If she wants to unmute.
No, I'm off. Yeah.
Advice for showcasing kits.
Yeah. Well, book displays are always good. I wouldn't advise just leaving the actual kit out, but certainly pictures with the bookmarks related to the kit and the project. The flyers, again, as I mentioned earlier, a lot of people you never talk to might be enticed to get involved by putting a flyer, for instance, in the space or astronomy area of your collection on the shelves. And hopefully it'll direct them or entice them to come up to the front of the library to your service or checkout desk and ask for more information. And on that point, the key is to make sure your staff knows about this too. Hopefully you have some time to squeeze, training or information updates about what you're doing with citizen science to your staff, because you don't want them to be blindsided by questions like this. And another great piece of advice is to try to encourage your staff to take that Foundations of Citizen Science training. With that knowledge, they'll be able to answer a lot of the questions, and then you'll just need to fill in the specifics for your library. So I hope that helped. And yeah, the videos too are really great. We have lots of short little videos. When you go to the library network page and you click on library/library hyphen kits, there's a bunch of little short videos that have been created that outline each of the different kits that we support through SciStarter. And those are certainly available for you to embed on your own websites or use in your own programming. So hopefully those suggestions help.
I was just going to say too, we have that webinar in January that's going to do a deep dive on the kits, and we'll talk about all of the additional kit resources, including the marketing materials for the kits. We've developed rack cards and posters specifically for the kits. So check out that webinar, or I linked the biodiversity kit, a how-to guide, and in there you can, that it's kind of a soup to nuts guide, and in there are the marketing materials as well for the kits.
Yeah, I really want to emphasize the shelf talker thing that Robin mentioned. For Citizen Science Month too, use any of the flyer templates we have for shelf talkers. Those could work really well. And like Tara said, the kits, those materials are there for you to use too. Looks like Emily put the survey in the chat. Please make sure you fill it out, everyone. It really helps us, especially because you know, Tara and her team have more webinars coming on up in the near future. So any feedback you give us about this one will help shape the ones that are upcoming.
Yeah, and if I could give a shout out, it looks like one of our newest network members, Pima County Public Library from Tucson, Arizona is on the line, and they did a great job in approaching how to bring citizen science to their community as other Arizona pilot libraries have done. And that's that they surveyed their community. You heard Caroline speak earlier about what is important to your community. And apparently the Pima County or Tucson area, Arizona, got some amazing feedback from their people, their library users, and they found out that the observing pollinators, measuring the light in the night, light pollution, and exploring biodiversity or the iNaturalist projects were the most important to their community. So you can do that as they did through a formal online or email survey. You can also do it through a display. You could create an interactive poster and said, what's important to you? You could either give them the choices or let them have just a free-for-all of what science or what concerns them in science. And it'll help you gather some maybe important decisions for programming or what kits you're going to adopt for your library.
Really quickly, I saw in the chat, Anne said, are you able to create a short video? You could link it to a QR code. On the subject of kits, there are a number of how-to videos for the SciStarter kits. So like for the Globe at Night kit, the Measuring Light in the Night kit, there are how-to videos. So you could use QR codes on your self-chalkers to link to how-to videos for the kits too. And all of that's available on SciStarter. Looks like we're almost out of time. So if anyone has any final burning questions, I would go ahead and get those in. And while you all do that, let's just reemphasize the fact that we do have a survey that we want you all to fill out. I'll put it in the chat one more time. Please fill that out. And like we said at the beginning, if you only take one link away from today, the library network link is the link, because that is your pathway into more webinars like this one, more resources and library engagement in these activities.
Absolutely. And we will also be sending out that survey link in that post-webinar email that Emily, you'll get from the library network emailing list sent by Emily. And that will summarize some of these resources today. Not all of them. We've put a ton of links in the chat, but I like Caroline's suggestion. We've intentionally built that library network page to be a route to other things. So that can be your page, your go-to page.
Awesome. Right, I don't see any more questions.
Yeah. I was going to say we can give you 5 minutes back in your day. It's already dark here on the East Coast, so in Philadelphia. So I'm sure you all want to get offline now. Thank you again, and to those who are watching the recording, because there's going to be a lot. Thanks for watching the recording, and we will see you at the next webinar. Wonderful. Thank you all.